it was a tragedy. I was heartbroken. But I just thought, no, I'm not going to let this beat me. I've got a child to raise. And I've always been a pretty resilient person. And I just did not want to be sad for the rest of my life. That sort of gave me the motivation to sort of think, right, I'm just going to have to find something here that's going to give me joy again. I thought, well, what have I got to lose? I'll give it a go. And I know a lot of my friends were like, oh, you're so brave going on the apps. I was like, this isn't brave. What I've been through is brave. This isn't brave. This is like, in the grand scheme of things, it's nothing really.
And how did you feel when you found out her situation? Did it put you off in any way? Did it make you kind of think twice?
It actually made me kind of like her a bit more because she was so open, confident. It didn't, go around the subject at all. It was very much own the situation.
Welcome to Season 4 of the Widow podcast. I'm Karen Sutton, the Widow Coach, and I'll be supporting you through the loss of your life partner so you can find a more positive way through your grief. Whether this is your first episode or you've been with me for a while, I want you to know you are capable of creating something meaningful after loss. And you don't have to do it alone. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Widow podcast. We have got the lovely Becky and Matt with us today, and this is going to be a really lovely episode of finding love after loss. We have talked about this before a little bit on the podcast, but to actually find a couple that are brave enough to come and share their story, I think is a real treat for us all. So thank you for being here, Becky and Matt, and talking to us today.
Thank you.
No problem.
So let's start then. So Becky, bless you, you are a widow and you were widowed. You're coming up to 4 years now, right?
Yes. So 2021 that Steve died. Yeah.
Yeah, 2021. So are you happy to share with us a little bit about, how you became a widow and how Steve died?
Yeah, of course. So Steve passed away on the 6th of August 2021, and it was an unexpected loss in that we were on holiday in North Wales in our caravan with our family and very close friends, something we did all the time. And unfortunately, he died whilst he was in the sea. Obviously, we were all present at the time, so sort of an added dimension there, but it was a very sudden, very tragic loss at that point in time. So that's how I've sort of come to be widowed, really, complete bolt out of the blue, changing your whole life plan and everything that you thought your life would look like going forward. So, yeah, very, very difficult period of time for us as a family.
How old were you at the time, Becky? How old was Steve?
So Steve was 47 and I would have been 44. So, pretty young really, and out of the order death really, isn't it, in terms of being at that young age. And we have got a child he was 13 at the time, he's now 17. So, obviously the impact of then all of a sudden being a solo parent on top of everything else and him being around at the time that it happened. So, yeah, really, really, really difficult period of time for us as a family.
And what did you find sort of supported you in that time? I know you said you were away with friends and, you've got that support network around you as well. But what did you do to sort of support yourself in that widowhood that you found yourself in?
So after, those very early days when you're going through, those immediate emotions and arrangements and everything, after a period of, I don't know, maybe 3 months or so, I started to sort of want to reach out to get support. I didn't feel ready prior to that. So I did the thing of Googling it, how can I, when will I feel better? When will I get over my grief? All of those things. And as part of that, I connected with Way, which is a bereavement support group for those under the age of 50, I think. So I originally sort of started to connect with Way locally and nationally on their forums. And then I stumbled across the wonderful Karen, and initially started to engage with the podcasts, and then joined Remember, and then went on to do the Finding Hope in Widowhood programme, which I completed nearly 2 years ago, I think now I completed that.
And I remember, you know, as you were going through Finding Hope, you were really wanting to find your way, weren't you? Sort of figure out who you were and what it is you wanted for life, you know, after loss. Did you have an idea of what you wanted that to look like quite early on?
Well, I think the one thing, Karen, that really resonated with me when I found you was you talked about not wanting your loss to define you negatively for the rest of your life. And that was something that I absolutely felt as well. It was a tragedy. Obviously, I was heartbroken, but I just thought, no, I'm not going to let this beat me. I've got a child to raise as well, which is an added motivation, isn't it, I think? And I've always been a pretty resilient person. And I just did not want to be sad for the rest of my life. And Steve himself had suffered the bereavement of his father about 2 or 3 years before he died. And that really knocked him hard mentally. And I just thought, I don't want to be in that place in the same way that he was. So that sort of gave me the motivation to sort of think, right, I'm just going to have to find something here that's going to give me joy again.
And at what point did you start to think, I might like to meet somebody else?
I would probably say I always had that feeling of not wanting to be alone forever. Me and Steve were together, 20 years. Even before that, I hadn't been single for very long. So I've never really done adult life without another person. And, I love the companionship that you can have with a partner. So I knew quite early on I didn't want to be on my own. I mean, I guess in terms of venturing into how do I meet somebody and the whole dating thing, which is very different to 20 years ago, it was probably, I was coming up to the 2-year point when I started to think, let's see what these apps are all about. I had a friend who was single as well, and so she'd been on the apps for a while, so had somebody else to sort of bounce off and talk to about it. So I thought, well, what have I got to lose? I'll give it a go. And I know a lot of my friends were like, you're so brave going on the apps. I was like, this isn't brave. What I've been through is brave. This isn't brave. This is like, in the grand scheme of things, it's nothing really. So it was just before that 2-year point, probably.
And did it feel like quite a natural step for you? I mean, you kind of say there it didn't feel brave. Did you find it quite an easy step to take to think about going on the apps?
Yes, I found it a big distraction. I'd had a really difficult Christmas. So that would have been Christmas 22 going into 23. Very difficult Christmas. My son had an injury. My mother-in-law had been very seriously ill in hospital. I'd not been well myself. So I thought I needed to get out of that. And so I thought, well, this will be a nice distraction, a little bit of fun. And so it didn't feel stressful or difficult for me at all. But I was very tentative in those first few times, obviously, on the app. I didn't sort of date many people really early on or anything. It was like just getting used to it, having a few conversations, seeing what it was all about. So I didn't rush into dates and things like that.
So how did you sort of think about what you were going to put on your profile? Because I know this is a big thing for widows. Do you tell people, do you put it out there that you are a widow? I know when I started venturing into it, I did, because I thought naively people would be kinder to me. They'll see I'm a widow. That was my reasoning behind it. But I know it's a big decision. What did you decide to do and why?
I didn't say that I was a widow. I was worried that people might try and take advantage if I put on there that I was a widow. One, they might see me as vulnerable because of my loss. They might make assumptions about my financial position or whatever. So I just felt that for that initial profile, not to put that on. I did make it clear that I had a child and that I had him 100% of the time. So it sort of made that position really clear, and people could make their assumptions from that, I guess. So that's sort of what I did in terms of my profile. And I was never asked by anybody I chatted to outright what my, why was that. I always volunteered that information relatively early on in the messaging, I would say.
Yeah. And how was that received?
Really well. Really well. I think I partly wanted to do it so, again, I guess there was an element of them maybe being nicer to me, like you said, Karen. But equally, I didn't want to start dating somebody who maybe couldn't deal with loss and bereavement. They might have had their own experiences of that recently, and I didn't want that to be difficult for them either.
Yeah.
So that's sort of why I sort of was quite open from the start, really.
So you've spent some how long were you on the dating sites for before you stumbled across the lovely Matt?
I probably went on in about the March, and me and Matt connected in the July.
Okay. So not too long, and that period of time between March and July.
Yeah.
Anything terrible happen in that time period?
No, I think the first person that I dated, had a couple of dates with, ghosted me after the second date, which actually really knocked me. I felt like I was a teenager again, in terms of how upset I was, and I felt rejected, and we'd had such good dates. There was nothing that made me think we wouldn't see each other again. And, so I was very emotional and very upset at that point. And it wasn't as if this was a person that I was sort of like, could see spending the rest of my life with this person. It was just that rejection, which did hit hard. And I guess that's sort of something I would say. I mean, I was sort of ready, I think, to start dating, but I didn't anticipate how that would feel. So you've got to be a bit aware of that and be in a good place. I mean, I didn't stay down for long, but it did knock me for a couple of weeks.
Did it make you nervous about going back in again?
It did, but I thought, I've been through worse. I could just let this knock me and go, I'm not going to do it then. But I was like, no, come on. That's just the first example. You've learnt a lesson there, not to get too attached too quickly, not throw you all into this on the second date. It was a bit naive, probably a bit of naivety in that. So no, it didn't put me off going forward, no.
And did you know what you were looking for? When we think about dating and, getting back out there and meeting somebody, I think a lot of women, I don't know about men, I'll ask Matt in a minute, but you have a bit of an idea of what you're looking for in somebody, that the qualities, the traits, that kind of thing, the life experiences. Did you have that, or did you go into it fairly open-minded?
I did have a little bit of a list. And, you put things on your profile as well in terms of what you're looking for. I definitely wanted somebody with a sense of humour. That's like my number one. Definitely wanted somebody preferably with children, because I think they understand the dynamic of having children. Family orientated, love of music, there wasn't one of the things we did as part of Finding Hope in Widowhood was write a list of all the things we admired in our person that died. So that almost became what I was looking for in some ways, because I'd had such a good relationship with Steve for 20 years. So those things I loved about Steve, I wanted to find somebody that had some of those qualities as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And Did you know straight away with Matt that he ticked those qualities, or were there ones there that you hadn't maybe thought about when writing this list that you thought, oh yeah, do you know what, actually that works?
Matt, yeah, I knew quite early on he ticked those boxes. He was funny in his profile from the start, and he used to DJ when he was younger, so there was the music connection. I think he made some comment in his profile about doing me a mixtape or something, doing a mixtape. So, I definitely knew that there was some similarities there. And obviously, as I got to know Matt a bit more, I could get a sense of the family dynamic with him and his children, but also with his own parents and his brother. So there wasn't anything, I guess. Matt and Steve are different, some similarities, but differences as well. Just in terms of, Steve was brought up in the military life, so very, very different in terms of that side of things to Matt. But still, I say some similarities, but some differences too. It's hard to sort of think exactly what they were, but different. I'd say different personality. Different personality. Matt's very laid back, whereas Steve, maybe he wasn't quite so laid back at times, but Matt's more laid back.
Bless you. It's funny, isn't it? I was quite surprised when I went into it. I thought I knew what I wanted, but actually what I thought I wanted wasn't what I needed. But you had done a lot of work on yourself before you went out into the dating world. I kind of went out into it as a huge distraction to my grief initially. So, what I was looking for wasn't necessarily what was right for me and what was going to work long term. But I think it's important, isn't it, that we are going into it having done the work, because otherwise we are looking for somebody to come along and save us or fix us in some way, when actually that's not fair. That's not their role. You want somebody to come in that adds value to your life, and you've done the work, so they're not then taking on a project, as it were, because it's that you support each other, of course you do, in a relationship, but doing that work on yourself first, I think, is really important. You make better decisions, right?
Yeah, I did have, in those really early days with me and Matt, that worry of, is this just a distraction? Am I getting caught up in all the newness of everything and the excitement of, finding somebody new and all of that? And that was a worry. And I think for us, it was quite intense quite quickly. My son happened to be away for a period of 3 weeks for trekking off in Nepal somewhere. So all of a sudden, very quickly, me and Matt spent a lot of time together in those first 2 or 3 weeks. And it was intense, it was good, but then it sort of got to that point where life got a bit back to normal, and it was coming up to Steve's anniversary as well in the August. And I just had to take a bit of a pause and just reflect, I think, and just because what I didn't want to do was to string Matt along either, and for him to be hurt if I was just using this as a distraction. So I did have to do a little bit of soul searching at that point, and just think about, is this something that I want? Am I ready? So, I certainly had to do that in those early days.
Do you know what it was that gave you the trust in yourself that you were ready and that was what you wanted?
It's funny to say, actually, but when I was having that downtime, I was actually in North Wales, and I went to the spot where we'd scattered Steve's ashes, and I took my journal with me, put the music on that he loved, and just wrote and wrote and wrote about how I was feeling. Was I ready? It was almost a bit of a conversation with Steve in a way, and that sort of gave me some clarity. Just that I know that he would have wanted me to be loved again and to love again. And he wanted Theo to be happy too. Sorry. Yeah, my son to be happy too. So it was, I guess, that time just gave me that opportunity to reflect on that and think, yeah, I am ready. And I reflected about Matt as a person as well. And actually what a great guy he was, and how supportive he'd been to me during that time, even though we'd only known each other for about a month at that point. So.
And was there an element of guilt in there, Becky, around meeting Matt and feeling the way you felt? And obviously, how does that work alongside your love for Steve and the grief, and is this okay? Is this allowed? Was that something, do you think, that was coming into your awareness?
Yeah, again, in that very early time, I did feel that a little bit. There was guilt about finding happiness with somebody else. There was guilt about losing my connection to Steve, and how I felt actually when I re-looked at my journal this morning. Actually, I thought, I'll just have a little read and reflect back. And actually, one of the things I put in there is that I felt like I was losing him all over again. And that was hard. But I just had to think, okay, how can I keep that connection even if I've got a new partner? So it was being quite conscious of that as well. So, yeah, interesting when I look back, because you sometimes forget the feelings that you had in that moment. But looking back in my journal, I'm thinking, yeah, it did. And I think I might have even mentioned it on one of the Finding Hope sessions, that it felt like that I was leaving him behind in a way. And I was, in some respects, because my life was moving on without him. But it was just thinking how to keep that connection going.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's allowing ourselves to stay connected, and it's balancing love for two people, isn't it? And it's just finding that space in your heart, in your life, to honour both, and know that both can be okay and live alongside each other. And things evolve and they shift and they move, but these transitions, I think, are quite hard for us because we're trying to figure out where it all fits. How does this all weave in together so that it's okay, and I can hold it all, rather than that just feeling that push and pull all the time, the back and forth. So, Matt, bless you. There you are on the dating apps, just having a look, and you obviously find Becky, and you guys become a match. Does it still work like that? Is it like you're a match? You like each other's pictures, and it says you've won?
Yeah, and then it's on the particular dating app I was on. It was for the female to initiate the contact with the man. So yeah.
Okay, so you're waiting, Matt, for this message. So, but you're not widowed, are you, Matt? You're divorced.
Yeah, I'm divorced. Yeah, so I was with my ex-wife for 20 years, married for 17. So I was single for just over 9 months before I met Becky. But with regards to the dating apps, for me, it was the first time I'd ever done it. So I was just home alone, and I thought, I'll see what it's like. And my fat fingers be swiping left or right. Kind of managed to match with Becky. So
I love it.
It was fate.
And did you know what you were looking for, Matt? I mean, you say you were sort of 9 months sort of after separating from your wife. Do you think that you were there was it a bit of a distraction for you? Were you genuinely looking for someone? Did you have a list?
I didn't have a list. I just for me at that point, I was very much looking at how I could be in like sort of 10 years time, who I'd want to be with, and that kind of thing. And going on these apps, I just didn't know what people were out there. I didn't know I kind of went in the mindset of, we've all got baggage. I mean, I've got 3 children, divorced. Whatever that baggage looks like, it's the person more rather than the stuff that's around the baggage that they carry.
And was it a difficult decision for you to make, to put yourself back out there?
It was, but I didn't think I would meet Becky or somebody like Becky that quickly, because it was the first interaction I had. So I was going into this thinking, well, it's going to be at least 12 months probably before I even get a date, kind of thing, So.
Wow, that's amazing, isn't it? And so quite quickly you meet Becky, and obviously you didn't know she was a widow because that wasn't on her profile. When did you find out that Becky was widowed?
Well, we had a phone conversation first. We kind of chatted a little bit on the text on the app, but then quite quickly Becky suggested. I think she obviously had a bit more experience than me in this. Then you can phone via the app. So I just got an electric car. I needed to go and charge it somewhere because I didn't have a charger at home. So I thought, I've got an hour to kill, sort of thing. I'll speak to Becky then. So I'm there, sat at a charging point, on the phone with Becky, and after about an hour of grilling and questioning from Becky, I got she kind of explained her situation a bit more then.
And how did you feel when you found out her situation? Did it put you off in any way? Did it make you kind of think twice?
It probably didn't put me off. It actually made me kind of like her a bit more because she was so open, confident, kind of, it didn't, go around the subject at all. It was very much, kind of own the situation and kind of, came across that way, really.
And were you comfortable talking about Steve and grief and how he died and how Becky felt around it all? Or was that something you've had to learn to talk about, or does it come quite naturally?
I think it was kind of learning without being taught, if that makes sense. It was very much like kind of going off what Becky was telling me and not really pushing it. It was, if she's comfortable telling me, then that's fine. If not, then that's fine as well. It was sort of like taking her lead, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And how did you sort of feel in yourself? Because I know this can be quite difficult for people that are dating a widow or a widower. There's that sense of feeling like they have to fill somebody's shoes, that they're taking somebody's place in some way. Did that feeling ever show up for you?
No, it didn't, because I think Becky was honest from the start. It was like, I'm not trying to replace anybody. I'm trying to find something for me for the rest of my life, if you know what I mean. So it wasn't, I've never felt like I've had to kind of fill somebody's shoes at all, really.
And do you think if Becky hadn't have sort of been that honest and open with you, that might have been something? Do you think that helped you in that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we were honest from the start, really. I think that was the good thing about it. We were just having honest chats and how we're feeling. I mean, Becky was on saying about when after about a month or so she went up to North Wales, and I was just like, I'm here if you need me, and she was contacting me if she felt a bit low or if anything, and so we were just being honest with each other at the time and there for each other if needs be.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I was sort of quite conscious to do was to not put Steve on a pedestal to Matt. And it's a tendency, I think, that we all have when somebody dies, and other people have as well. And so I was quite honest with Matt about Steve, and sometimes the things that weren't so good about Steve as well, because I didn't want him to have to sort of compare himself to this superhuman person. Steve was human like the rest of us. So I wanted to keep that quite real as well. And, obviously, I think maybe that's helped Matt a little bit as well, that I haven't sort of put Steve up there on this pedestal.
And is that something you sort of consciously thought about before dating, or is that something that you just sort of intuitively knew you needed to do when you started the relationship with Matt?
I think it was more intuitive, to be honest. Yeah, I was trying to sort of put myself in Matt's position and how I would feel. I mean, it would be the same if Matt was talking about his ex-wife and how wonderful she was. All this, it's similar, isn't it? So it was more intuitive than sort of a planned thing, really.
And I think that's really important, actually, because I've said it to you guys before, but I think it does take somebody really special, I think, to date a widow or a widower, because I do think it's a lot to take on, and not a lot of people are comfortable around grief and loss and death, and it can feel really uncomfortable, can't it? And people don't know necessarily how to communicate around it, how to be around it, and we all end up in our own heads with our own thoughts, and I do think it's the kind of responsibility of the person who's lost, the widower, to offer that reassurance and provide that sense of safety, so that they don't feel like they're having to step into somebody's shoes, or that they're playing second best in a situation. Because I think naturally that's probably how we'd all feel a little bit, like you've just said, Becky. If you were to sort of flip it and think about how you would feel, you would want that kind of reassurance and that knowledge that you're not constantly being compared. Because you're right, when somebody dies, they're the best thing ever, aren't they? It's like, oh, don't speak ill of the dead, but nobody's perfect. And relationships are hard work. However brilliant that relationship was, there are challenges, and there, especially over a 20-odd year period. So I think to keep the person that has died real, and not sort of create this saint-like figure that everyone feels they have to live up to. I think that's just a really lovely thing to do for the other person, because it's important, right? We all need to feel that sense of safety and trust in something, and then we're not playing second fiddle, because that's a horrible feeling. So obviously you've got your son, Becky, and Matt, you say you've got a son and 2 daughters. At what point did you decide to either meet each other's children, or did you do that all at once? Did you meet each other's children first, or did you just go all in and all hooked up?
Well, my son Theo was around the house, obviously, with me. Matt was coming over here. And Theo, I've been quite open with him about dating, because he was a little bit older. He was 15, 16 at the time. So I thought I owe it to him to just tell him where I'm going, who I'm with, So Theo was earlier, wasn't he, I think, Matt? And, I told him, and I said, oh, Matt's going to be here when you get back. And, so that's how it happened. But we waited a little bit longer for your children.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And was he all right about it, Becky? Did you notice any resistance?
No resistance at all. And it's funny, when I've talked to him subsequently, and I think he, in some ways, obviously he gets on well with Matt, which helps. And he says, oh, he's nice, Mum, he's nice, which is good. I think for him, he felt a bit of an element of responsibility for me, because it was just me and him. And when I've talked to him subsequently, he said, well, I know that you'll be all right now, Mum. So I think it's taken some of that responsibility off his shoulders a little bit, in terms of worrying about me, because I've got somebody else to do that in his mind. So
yeah, I love that. And then how about your children then, Matt? How were they about meeting Becky?
I'm really excited. I think they're quite excited about it, because I told them, obviously, several things about her personality and everything, and they're kind of open arms, brought Becky into our little madhouse, and every time I see them, I get them 50% of the time, and every Monday, without a fail, when the kids come round, I haven't seen them for a week, the first thing is, where's Becky? Is she coming around? So,
that sounds like it's
not about how you're your dad. It's still about Becky. So.
That's so lovely that's gone so well. And what about the 4 of them together?
Yeah, they seem to. I mean, they've probably been together well, 4 or 5 occasions, sort of games nights over at either house, or, you know, we've been out and done a few things as a group. And they've got on okay. I mean, Theo's very easily laid back, gets on with people pretty easily, and your kids are the same, aren't they? So, you know, they've just sort of gelled quite well together. I'm sure if they spend more time together, there'll be the usual bickering.
But
and
they all gang up.
siblings.
They all gang up on us, don't they? So
Yeah.
they're getting on all right.
They're okay. And then what about sort of in-laws? And I suppose really, you know, Steve's family in all of this. Have you met them, Matt?
I have done, yes. Yeah, they don't do a manual for meeting the in-law of the in-law.
Yeah. How was that? I mean, was that the most terrifying thing you had to do, do you think?
It wasn't terrifying. I was more worried about obviously Steve's mom and the brother, really, because obviously that's not a situation they ever thought they would ever be in. So you know, very sympathetic to them, really, and how they would be feeling. I wasn't that scared. I was more scared from Becky's son telling me all about his grandma and how he tells him off and things. So I think I was a bit more. Yeah, if I was scared, it was about that.
Oh, but was it okay? Have they been good, Becky?
Yeah, they've been really supportive. I can remember Steve's mum saying to me in those very early days that she wouldn't expect me to be on my own forever. So I've sort of, in a way, had her permission. I think when I started sort of dating a little bit more regularly, I did let them both know that was what I was doing. I think they were quite surprised, maybe that they felt maybe it was a bit soon. I don't know, but and then once I'd met Matt, I told them straight away. But it took a good sort of 12, 18 months for them to meet Matt, because they live away from where we live anyway, so practicalities and things. And it needed to be the right time for them, because I think there was a bit of an adjustment for them to think of me with somebody else, and how they might feel about that. And I think we were scheduled to do it at one point, and then my mother-in-law didn't feel ready, so we just postponed it. So we very much were led by them as to when they felt comfortable to do that. And they've met Matt a couple of times now. And I think one of the first comments my mother-in-law made to me after Matt had left was, "You've been so lucky. How have you found this wonderful person?" And that actually there were a lot of similarities, she said, with Matt and her late husband. So that was really, really nice of her to say. And she could obviously see I was happy, and can see that Theo's happy as well. So it's gone well. I think there is a shift for them. And, you know, it'll change things when they come to visit and stuff like that. It'll be slightly different. But yeah, they seem accepting of it, and they're quite keen to meet Matt's children as well, and to feel that we're all part of a family. So, which is really, really nice.
It sounds like communication has been a huge part of this on all sides, that you've both created this space of openness and honesty and trust right from the beginning, where you know that it doesn't sound like you've held back in any way. You've kind of just been who you needed to be and said what you needed to say, and that's really helped the situation in terms of you just all know where you sit in it all. You know, there's no questioning, and you all have an understanding, I suppose, and a compassion for each other's circumstances, because, you know, as much as Becky, you know, you're going through the grief of losing Steve, you know, Matt going through a divorce is really hard, isn't it? And just holding that space for each other, and working together in it openly and honestly, which I know isn't always easy to do, but has that come quite naturally?
I would say so. I've always been quite an open person anyway. I don't see the point in hiding things and not just being open with people. And I think I was very fortunate to have a very good relationship with my mother-in-law, even from before Steve died. I knew her for as long as I knew Steve, really. So we'd always had a very open and trusting relationship, and she had that with her boys as well. So that was really, really helpful. And I think it was great of Matt to be open to, because quite often you might, maybe more so in men than women, they can be a little bit more closed off emotionally. And I was, lucky that Matt was open. Steve was a very open book as well. So I guess that's another characteristic that, was similar, really. And we, me and Matt were very, very conscious of not rushing things, particularly with the children in mind and the wider family. So, although I was probably the one at the start that was like really motoring on and going, oh, this is really great, and like I want to tell the world, Matt was always that, like, we just need to take it a step at a time. Let's just, so we have been very thoughtful about how we've done things along the way, haven't we? And we've both never been here before, so it's just like, let's just figure it out together, and
Yeah. I love that. Because you're right. It's hard at the beginning, isn't it? When everything's all new and exciting and you just kind of want to run with it. But it sounds like Matt was quite grounded in it all, and just kept a level there that allowed everyone to just find their feet in it all. Matt, when you met Becky, and you obviously were sharing with your family and friends that she was widowed and had a son, did you meet any concern from anyone at all about what you were sort of stepping into, or was everyone really open?
Everyone was just, I think, just happy for me, really, and obviously happy for Becky as well. So never really cropped up at all. Really, nobody's ever said anything to me, which is, I was quite surprised. But I think it's just seeing that loved one like me, like with my family, just happy.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing, I think.
And was there anything sort of, as you were starting out, that, you're having all these open and honest conversations, but was there any point where you thought, oh, that's a bit tricky, or I'm not sure about that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say tricky. I think it was a lot of it was like, what are other people thinking? Like, from my side, anyway, it was like, oh, I'm just here to take advantage of her, and she's in, she's down from her experiences. Am I just there taking it? Which I wasn't, because I think Becky had more of her stuff together than me, kind of thing. So that kind of came into my thoughts. But I think it's proven when we've met Becky's friends, the neighbours, everybody, they've kind of so happy for Becky and happy for me. Like, we're both happy together, kind of thing. I think that's what really surprised me, really. No judgment at all from anybody.
And that's so reassuring, isn't it, actually? Because I think that is the one thing that so many of us fear for so many reasons, don't we? That judgment of others. What are they going to say? What are people thinking? But actually, in your experience, that fear could have held you back and maybe stopped you from taking steps. But in reality, that fear was never, actualized, was it? Because all you were met with was good grace, and people were just so happy that you two had found each other and found that happiness together.
I mean, I think I would probably say that through going through my journey since Steve died, I have lost friends along the way. But I've been very selective now about who I let into my life. And I think I only look for people that bring light in. So really, those people, I wasn't worried that they would be accepting, because I knew that these were people that I was really comfortable with and loved me. Matt obviously didn't know that, but so I haven't had that judgment. I'm sure there are ex-friends of mine that probably do have things to say, but that's up to them. They're not in my shoes, and I just don't let those things bother me anymore. I would have done before Steve died, absolutely. But now I'm like, I don't really care. As long as we're happy and the kids are happy.
Yeah. I love
don't
that.
Really care what anybody else thinks.
And that's just testament to the work that you've done on yourself, isn't it? You have that inner trust in yourself that you know what you're doing is right for you, and other people might think differently, but like you say, they don't know you and your reality, and if they have got something to say about it, then they could say it, and you would give them the facts of the matter.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, in widowhood, one of the big things that comes up for widows is that side, the intimacy side, isn't it? That, oh my God, I've been with my person for this many years. And for some people, it's been since a teenager, and it might have been the only person that people have been with. And actually getting intimate with somebody else, getting close to somebody else can actually hold people back. Was that a concern of yours, Becky, going into another relationship?
It was certainly something that played on my mind when I first started dating. I think there's this perception, and maybe it depends what app you're on, but there's this perception that that's all people are after when you're on a dating app. So I was worried about that because that's not what I wanted. I wasn't going on the apps for a quick fling. I was looking for a long-term relationship, really. So I did have that worry. But then equally, I put it in perspective with everything else I'd gone through. I thought, in the grand scheme of things, is it, that big a deal? I think with Matt, I felt that I trusted him quite early on, and I didn't find that difficult because I think we go back to a bit about that openness and honesty and that connection. But, it didn't cross my mind. I didn't feel guilty about it. Yes, there's the whole worry about body confidence and all of that stuff. But, I'm a 40-something-year-old lady, so take me as you find me.
I love that. And I think as well, it's really hard to imagine yourself being intimate with somebody that you don't know, because you don't have, when you meet someone that you are attracted to and you start to build a relationship with, that's usually based on a level of trust, isn't it? Mm-hmm. You start to get to know them a little bit. When you're in their energy, you feel differently about things than you do when you don't even know this person exists, but you're imagining being intimate with someone and you get all in your head. But actually, when you meet the person that feels right with, and they make you feel safe, and you feel like you can trust them in that moment, and there's that connection, there's that energy that you're feeling when you're in their space, their company, it's natural, and all of those concerns, I'm not saying they just go out the window and you feel 100% confident, but you feel far more relaxed about it than you imagine you're going to be when you're thinking about it beforehand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think I just didn't overthink it. Yeah. I think that's the one thing I would say. Don't overthink it. Go with what feels right. If it feels right, it feels right. If it doesn't, obviously, don't do something that you're not comfortable with. But, for me, it just felt right in that moment. And, as you say, Matt made me feel safe. I didn't feel judged. I didn't feel scared or, anything.
And I think as well, it's important. I mean, I'm not going to quiz you on this, Matt, but I think it's really important to acknowledge that it's not just women that feel that sense of nervousness and apprehension, do you know, of being intimate with somebody new. I think, anyone who has a level of sort of emotional intelligence and is meeting somebody new for the first time that they care about, I think both parties are probably a little bit like, oh God, there's that sense of nervousness there, and it's about reassuring each other, isn't it? And knowing that you're probably both in a bit of a similar position.
Yeah, definitely. It's like on my side, it was very much exactly like what Becky said. It was, making sure it was the right time, and reassuring her, really.
Yeah.
And I think that was the big thing for me.
Yeah, I love that, and just having that openness between you, and now here you are, sort of two years in nearly, and you're moving in together, and I know, big step, right? And actually, Matt, you're moving into Becky's home, which was Becky's home with Steve a few years ago now, but I think that's such a beautiful thing to do, Matt, and I know it's something you two have talked about. How did you come to decide that was the right next step?
Yeah, I think from after about sort of 9 months, sort of together, we were kind of like, what does the future look like? And if you'd asked me after that first initial 9 months, it was like, I'll sell my house, you sell your house, we'll get a house together. I felt like I couldn't, you're talking about going into somebody else's shoes. I felt like I was going into somebody else's life, if that makes sense. Like, that step of going into sort of Becky's house. So after kind of like swallowing my pride and actually thinking about it, I think that the best thing I could do was sort of say, well, I'll move in there because Becky's got memories, her son's got memories there, and logically, it is the best thing to bring our what's the best thing to get our two families together, and that is the best option, really. So yeah, time is a good thing with regards to swallowing your pride and going through.
I think that's really, really lovely, Matt. Just being able to do that and think about what is best for everyone, and like you say, time, getting more used to spending time at the house, and knowing that it's going to be part of your future moving forward, but also honoring the time that Steve spent there, and the presence that he had in their lives. That's such a gift. That really is such a gift. And I think it really shows, what a unique and special person you are to be able to do that, because that's not easy, and I think a lot of people would kind of say, I wouldn't mind a fresh start and somewhere that we can find on our own. And, I do think that that's really special, really special. Are you looking forward to being together?
Yeah, I am. I don't know about you, Becky.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I've even got a countdown on the phone, how many days left. I think it's like 32 or something. Yeah, I'm really, really excited. We've involved the kids in the conversations from Christmas time, really, and been getting the house decorated for the girls, and I'm loving doing the bit of girly pink bedroom shopping and all of that. So it's been really, really nice that they've engaged with it, and that the kids are excited as well. And and I'm just so grateful for Matt for being able to do that, and for us to stay here. I think I'd had the conversation with Theo obviously about that, and he was very keen to stay in this house, and I think I probably could have moved, but obviously for Theo it was a big deal for him. So I'm just very grateful that Matt was happy to do that.
I bet you are, because it's just that stability, isn't it, for him? And where are you at with your grief now, Becky? Where does your love for Steve, I suppose, and your grief fit alongside this? How what does that look like for you now?
I would say that I sort of probably at about that 2-year point when I met Matt, I'd accepted it. I got into that sort of acceptance phase. I do have moments occasionally. They are fleeting, I will say, at the moment, in terms of being sort of really emotional about Steve not being here. I bring Steve into conversation a lot, be that with Matt, be that with my son, be it with Matt's kids. So he's around from that point of view in terms of being in the conversation. I've still got photographs up. And one of the things I did quite recently was get one of these big frames with loads of pictures in. And I was very conscious about wanting Matt's pictures in there alongside Steve. And that was still a little bit of symbolism about that, I guess, in that it's about us coming together, not without Steve, but with him.
Yeah.
And I was a bit nervous about doing that, how that might be felt by other people, particularly my mother-in-law, but she was great. She was great. And she just said, it would be strange if Matt wasn't there, wouldn't it?
Aww.
So, which was really, really nice. And so we just I sort of find those connections in little ways, really, with Steve. And I say, grief-wise, I'm definitely in that phase of there's less pain now.
Yeah. Yes.
And I can look back with those happy memories about Steve. And I always say to Matt, like, I am who I am because of Steve.
Yeah.
So the things that Matt loves about me are things that I am that way because of Steve as well. So in sort of, in a weird way, there's that connection because I was with Steve so long, and through all my, early adulthood, he shaped me.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot to thank Steve for from Matt's point of view as well, in terms of who I am. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just that beautiful sort of amalgamation of your past, your present, and your future, isn't it? It's like you, exactly like you say, you are who you are because of all of those things. And it's nice to honor them all, isn't it? And take it all forward with you without feeling like you're having to leave someone behind. Do you think that, meeting Matt and allowing yourself to love and be loved again has helped the healing process a little bit in your grief?
Yes, I would say. I mean, I did a lot of the work before, but I think, I think having somebody else to talk to when I'm having those moments, that is almost not connected to Steve in a way, and the before, has been really, really helpful. I think having a companion in life, and we all know what it's like when you're on your own, how lonely that feels. So obviously having somebody there in those moments as well, and not feeling that I'm doing it on my own. Obviously raising a child as well, it sometimes can feel even lonelier, I think, and harder. So be able to have another parent to go, I'm not sure what I should do about this situation, or somebody to bounce things off, who knows my son, knows me, gets the dynamic a bit more. It's been really, really healing.
Yes, I love that. And I think you're right. Meeting somebody else isn't the answer. It doesn't fix everything. I think you have to do that inner work, but I do think opening yourself to love again, if you choose to, you don't have to, but I do think it offers, just maybe that extra layer. And like you say, having somebody to share life with, and having that safe space, that anchor in the world again, I think we all just feel a bit safer. And I don't know, not all of us, but I think for me as well, like you say, just knowing that you've got that person by your side to support you in life is a beautiful thing, and to be able to experience that twice as you have is a gift, isn't it? It is a gift.
Absolutely. And actually, when I looked back in my journal, that was one of the things that I'd written in my sort of little letter to Steve, really, was that what a gift to be able to have two great loves, actually, in my life. And I would have been silly to have thrown that away with Matt because of feelings of guilt, really. So, absolutely. I think, if it's what you want and it's what you're ready for, then go for it. And, we all know the pain, and the pain is horrible. But I would, the love is worth the pain.
Yeah.
If somebody had said to me, when I met Steve 20 years ago, oh, well, in 20 years he's going to die, would I have walked away from that relationship? Of course I wouldn't.
No.
Of course I wouldn't. So, we know that grief is love. And so It's absolutely worth it.
Absolutely. And Matt, have you got any top tips for somebody that is maybe embarking on dating a widow, and how to maybe navigate, helping them to open themselves up to love again, I suppose?
Yeah, for me, it's like kind of being open, honest. Just that communication, really, I think it has been the key thing for us too. But it's being sympathetic to that kind of situation as well. And when Becky starts talking about Steve, it's like it feels like, oh, you got two lovers kind of thing. But it isn't that. It's having the fond memories, and and knowing that person's got a lot of love to give and take, and kind of get that bit of love for yourself, really. So
I love that. That's brilliant. That's absolutely that. Flipping it and just thinking, this is a good thing. This is a good thing.
Yeah,
You've got a lot of love to give. Yeah, I love that. And Becky, what about you? Any tips for anyone thinking of embarking on the dating world?
Just do it. I just think, don't overthink it. Make sure you're ready, and that you're not just doing it to fill a gap or heal a wound, or however you want to think of it. I think you need to be really clear why you're doing it, what you want out of it. Some people might want it for just a bit of a fling, and that's absolutely fine if that's what suits them in that moment. But don't overthink it. Be safe. Make sure you're safe. Keep people in the loop where you are, what you're doing, who you're with, and all of that sort of stuff. But don't overthink it. Just go with it. And if you get a bit of ghosting and a rejection, suck it up. That's the game. Unfortunately.
I always think in those situations, it's always, remember, it says way more about them than it does about you.
Absolutely.
Not that it makes it any better, because it is horrible. It is horrible. And if you're already feeling a bit vulnerable, you've got to be in that place where you're kind of willing to take these things on the chin a little bit, because it's likely they'll happen, unless you're as lucky as Matt was, and the first person he meets is the right person. I mean, that's just gold.
I was about to give up on the app, so I was like, one more weekend and that's it. I'm going to come off for a while, and there we go. So when you sort of probably least expect it, really.
There it is. There it is.
Happens,
Oh, listen, Becky, Matt, you have been amazing. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us all. Honestly, really appreciate it. It's so nice to hear both sides of the story, and just keep talking. It sounds like you've nailed it. You're very open, and there's clearly a great respect and a great love between you, and that's really beautiful to see. And wishing you all the best with the big move, and building your life and your future moving forwards. Bless you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Karen.
Yeah, thank you, Karen.
Thank you so much for listening to the Widow Podcast with me, Karen Sutton. If you would like more support, head to karensutton.co.uk or explore the many other episodes for more conversations and support. You can do so much to help you take steps forward towards a brighter future, and I'd love to help you do that.